All right, welcome everybody to episode 3 of Worldwide Slot Car Chat. My name is Greg Gauss, better known as Mr. Flippant on the various forums and such. I live in the Seattle, Washington area, and I race all kinds of slot cars, though primarily 1/32nd scale hard-bodied cars, both analog and digital. So who would like to go next? All right, Phil, you're next.
Well, okay. I was trying to move away from the window so I wouldn't have so much glare.
And you're fine.
So my shiny head, you'll get glare anywhere. So whatever. But hey, you'll see me on the forums as Drum Phil. I think Greg and I have had a few transactions in the past, and I've had the honor of having Dave Kennedy in my home. So it's, I'm out in the wilds of Nebraska. It was fun, man. It was fun.
You say you're in fun. Nebraska?
He is. Yeah. So that must be Kelly, huh?
Yes.
I've seen some of the first two streams, and I saw that you were in Omaha. I'm out in Seward.
Oh, okay. Okay. Not too far.
Yeah, we're not too far away.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll make this kind of short, but this is probably my third stint in slot cars. I had an HO as a kid, and I loved it. But then I moved on, as we all tend to do. And then when I got in the family way, probably 10, 11 years ago, my wife brought home a 1/43rd scale Carrera Go set for one of the boys from a garage sale. And we started messing with that. I had no idea there were bigger scales than HO. So, we started messing with that. And then when I went to the store to look for some, add-on parts and more track, I saw the 1/32nd stuff. I was like, ooh, this is cool. So I had no idea. And so started getting into that, and then discovered, of course, and really loved the features. And so that got me in. And then after about 5 years of that, the first time around, we were in pretty deep. I had a couple of setups. We had done some public events and, some evangelism, if you will. That was cool, but I was way over invested, and I couldn't get anybody to come around. We couldn't get a group going, and I was really, at the time, felt like I was over invested for doing it on my own. Made the bad decision, right? Said, yeah, I can't afford this hobby. So basically sold everything out. So I don't know, Greg, you might have one of my old cars. I'm not sure, but but yeah, I sold everything out, and that was dumb, because after about 3 years out or so, I was watching the Bathurst 12-hour race and going, man, it'd be awesome to make a slot car track that mimics this, and there we go. The bug bit again. And so now I'm back in and built it up again. For me, it was kind of a simple decision. I'm on Carrera Digital because around here, that's what's available, and I know online you can buy just about anything you want. And frankly, that's where I get most of my stuff anyway. But that was kind of what was available in the digital. So that's what I'm doing. It's a ton of fun. I got a layout now that's about 8 foot by 16 foot. I had built myself a 1-lane analog MDF track just for the proof of concept that I could do it. I still have it, but I don't really use it. And I love the little bitty old school one cars. So that's hard to do on digital. It can be done, but I'm not that keen on cutting up those little bitty cars.
Yeah.
So yeah, to make it short, basically I've ordered the tech slots dual mode switch box, and that should be coming in a couple of weeks, and then I'll be able to do everything on my one track, and I'm excited.
Yeah, I saw a video when somebody was running an HO scale around their Carrera Digital D124. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I never thought about it, but the rails are far enough apart that an HO, feet or whatever, the skids on an HO car would would get a good contact. And so you can run 164th, 143rd, 132nd, and 124th on that big old Carrera track. So that's pretty cool.
I suppose, yeah. So.
All right, Kelly, you want to do us a quick introduction?
Yeah. Like Phil said, I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. Just like him, I had an HO when I was young, and then went away from it for a long time. My son was born and decided that I wanted to get back in it and got another HO track. Well, something happened to one of the controllers and went to the local hobby store, and they had the 32nd scale SCX track. And that's what got me hooked because of the being able to switch lanes and have the pit and the fuel. And so I went super hard, invested in SCX, just like Phil. Started a club, but it was mostly friends and family. At one point had up to like 12 people, but consistently probably about 4 or 5. Then after a while, a couple people moved away, kind of put it away for, a couple of years, and then got the itch, start looking at the videos. And one of the first videos I looked at was Greg's track, and that's what got me. And so then I started signing back up and then realized the SCX was kind of going under. And then like Phil, here, Carrera is, that's pretty much in any hobby store you're going to see in Nebraska, a Carrera track. I wasn't a big fan of Carrera from the beginning. I don't like the controllers. I know they can be changed out. So I started doing research and found the Scalextric digital track. And so I invested in that, and now I'm in the process of trying to switch over some of my cars from SCX to Scalextric digital. Not the most savvy as far as doing the soldering and the chipping, but with Greg and a couple of other friends on the chat trying to encourage me. I haven't given up yet, so I am in the process of setting up a track. Right now, I'm going between 4 feet or 6 feet. I don't know yet wide, but 16 feet long, Scalextric digital track, and so hopefully to be able to pique some interest back up here in Omaha. And then now that I know that Phil is in Seward, which is not that far away, and even though he is on Carrera, I'll get with Greg and he's gonna help me wire up some stuff, because I know he does. He got the chips where he can run it on either track. So I'll be looking forward to that, and hopefully once all this stuff with the coronavirus gets over with, I'll be able to reach out, and maybe me and Phil together can get Nebraska up and going in the slot car industry. So that's pretty much my story. I'm glad that all you guys are on. I love hearing your guys' background and just the things that you guys do with slot cars. I'm a beginner. Like I said in the other video, I'm a beginner. I'm always listening to try to get to some of your guys' level. So that's pretty much my story.
Cool. Billy, you've been patiently listening there. You came in early. Go ahead and give us your intro.
All right, my name's Billy. You'll see me as Sunday Slot Cars on forums and maybe Facebook. What happened was, when I was a kid, I raced the 143rd scale. And like the other guy said, I had no idea other scales existed. I ended up getting into RCs for a bit as an adult, and it's such a pain. It's literally, you're spending half the time, like I spent just as much time doing maintenance on the car as I would racing it. And I was like, this is just such a pain. I want something a little easier. I saw a YouTube video from Monster Hobbies of Carrera Digital, and I ended up cheaping out and getting an HO set from AFX. So I played with that for like a race, and I was like to my wife, I'm like, this just really isn't the same thing. I ended up getting Carrera Digital. And the reason I got Carrera Digital was actually because SCX just did not have the wireless hand throttles out. And I think it took them like a whole year after I was interested before they actually released it. With the new this is the Arc Pro or Arc, I think it's the Arc or something. But got wireless for Career Digital. Kind of glad I did because my basement leaks. I need the track to be rust proof anyway. So that's pretty much my story. I mean, I still have DHO cars. I got one right here. I got a 4-lane Career Digital track right now. It's 6 by 16, a little bit more. It's kind of like an L shape, but it might go to 19 feet a little later. My wife wants to expand it. I know it's awkward for me to say my wife wants to expand it.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's
He's a
awesome.
keeper.
Lucky guy.
I know. I didn't even, I myself didn't want to. I was like, oh, this is fine. She's like, no, you know, it needs to get a little bit, like, I forget what she said. She just wants to stick to 4 lanes is what she said. She just likes the extra room. She likes it chaotic. That's my story anyway.
Okay.
I
thank
see another group, the women of slot cars.
all one,
Yeah, all
In
two
a
or
good
three
way.
all 2 of them.
worldwide.
It's
We
not
normally
big.
call them the widows.
Jeff, did
And
you
then-
want to give us
and-
an introduction?
And and my sign-on name, I forgot to say it, is Genie2369 on a lot of the forums. So
Jeff, you want to go ahead and give us an intro?
Sure, absolutely. Well, name is Jeff Nagel, and surprisingly, on the forums, it's J.D. Nagel. Not real hard. So, with any secret decoder name, so no secret decoder pins to figure out who I am. I am strictly Scalectric Digital at this point. Got a really good deal on a bunch of track that someone was wanting to get rid of because they had a routed track that they were running 124 custom built cars. So I got it. I really enjoy it. I've added some pieces to it, lane changers, pit lane, those types of things. Running Arc Pro at this point, that's a really good tip on a 7042 APB, which will really pique more interest in the race management systems, which there are a few out there that I find really fascinating with all the detail they have inside of them, which is really nice. Some of the things that I like to see, which gives it a lot more functionality. I know Arc Pro will get there. I believe it wholeheartedly, but it's not quite there yet, even though it's out for 3 years at this point, if I'm not mistaken. Seems like development cycles take a while in this space, and with the enthusiasts, a lot of us here, people in the market, they're clamoring for, please, manufacturers, give us something because we will develop it homegrown organically to fit our needs. And then that all gets pushed back against to each other. And we're like, wow, this is cool. So-and-so did this and so-and-so did that. And, you know, that's just how this seems to work that I've found. And Kelly, like you, I am quite new into this space, less than 2 months, but it's very fun. I mean, I've already been experimenting with converting some of my old analog that I got with this set, analog Mustangs, Parnelli Jones, and Sweet Savage cars, the old Mustangs, converting them over to digitals with F1 chips, which are narrow and so forth. I've already ruined one chassis. It's not broken, but the hole for the slots is big. It's a learning process, right? It's fun. I enjoy it. My girls enjoy it. So just doing a lot of experimentation right now, trying to figure out work for what I kind of have planned going forward.
Cool. Thanks for that. And Mark, how about you go if you want to?
Okay.
I gotta say goodbye, guys. I gotta scoot out. So nice to meet y'all, and I'll check up
Phil.
on the stream. See ya.
Thanks for coming, Phil. See ya.
Take care, Phil. Thanks for coming.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, you may know me as Slots NZ. Any of you who come on OzSlot and on SCI, where I like to think I'm Wet Coast Racers honorary policeman. I like to give them lots of cheek. We get along real well. On Slot Forum International UK, I'm known as Slot Crazy. I tried to keep my identity a little bit hidden there for a long time. I'll explain why. My background is that as a kid, I had a Scalectric set. We're New Zealand. We're an ex-British colony, so Scalectric was the only thing that ever got them ported here under licensing for 50 years. 30 years probably. And then but I was a kid, and as about a 12-year-old, my brother-in-law was into a public raceway group. He's a lot older than me, 10 years older, and he gave me a hand-built Willys Jeep in balsa wood and resin, which I raced around a public raceway as an 11-year-old until it broke. Then one of the guys I was at school with, his parents opened a public raceway as part of an amusement arcade, and so we raced there a couple of summers with the hire cars. And then that was pretty much it for me. At 14, I got to high school, school sport, and girls. Then come mid-40s, I broke my back renovating a rental property, and that was the end of my squash or racquetball playing days. So while I was learning to touch, type, and eat food blind, I thought, what can I do apart from throwing a jug around a sports bar that, to get together with some guys? And I remembered loving slot cars as a kid. And so I went online, and I couldn't find any public raceways in my part of the country or clubs. There was about 3 steel chassis clubs left, which race at basically international level, up to Group 12, Falcon class, that sort of thing. And a bunch of guys I've since found actually go off to the Worlds each year. But that was pretty serious and expensive stuff. And then I discovered that the people I called the crazy continentals, that's the Europeans, they race Scalextric cars on plastic tracks. And I thought, oh, that might be doable. At that point, I only knew one brand, Scalextric. I didn't know there were other brands of slot car. I didn't know there was a hobby world separate to the toy store world, nothing. But as I started to get mobile again, I got a community newspaper to run an article about me wanting to start a Europlastic club, which was a term I invented. And I got a bunch of guys over home and showed them some of the Spanish clubs racing, everything from raid and rally cars to road cars. And they thought it a good idea. So I chucked in a small amount of finance that allowed us to buy some track and get started with some club controllers. And fortunately, I had a rental property with a 6 by 10 meter. That's what do you call that? 30 by 20 foot garage with a toilet in it that I just bought. So that became our club rooms for the first couple of years. Nobody in New Zealand would supply me with track. We realised we wanted something bigger than Scalextric in terms of lane spacing, but the Ninco distributor wouldn't supply me. Retailers wouldn't supply me. Carrera guys said, "You're well imported from China," and quoted me what I could have flown it from England cheaper. So I went to the Australian Ninco distributor, and he said, "What a great idea." He said, "I'll give you a wholesale less 15%, and you'll need some cars and stuff." And I'd sent him over my business CV because I was recently retired. He said, I'm serious, I'm doing something decent here. And he said, the Ninco agency is vacant over here in New Zealand. He says, I'm going to the World Toy Fair next month. Would you like me to put a word into you with David? So, oh, yeah. So that was how it started. So he was bringing container loads of Ninco to Australia in those days, directly out of China, Australia or New Zealand through power supply. So I started distributing Ninco, and we set up the club and bought a couple of 100 cars to get the club started and sell around. And the club went pretty well. We raced on the Ninco track for 2 years, but just as we were thinking we'd go non-magnet, there was a bit of a division in the club, as sometimes happened. And fortunately, the guy that really wanted to push me out as kind of default club captain, who took 2 other guys with him, he actually fell out with them before the other track, the first wood track they were building, got finished. So those guys came back to us. So we then raced on that wood track as a club, and apart from little minor hissy fits, which are pretty minor, we've been doing that together on the wood tracks since 2008 now. So the club's been going since end of 2006, and we're about 15 strong, racing on wood tracks. We don't have a club rooms anymore. We race around our home tracks, and what I can do is just take this tablet and walk out to the garage. We built a new house when we came back to New Zealand a couple of years ago. We were gone, and Spain for a bit over a year. But that's my track. It's a 4-lane wood track.
Oh, okay, I've seen that one.
Braid courtesy of Steve and Dickie. I bring in the braid and sell it around New Zealand. And we've got 2 4-laners and my messy workbench. There you go. One messy workbench. 4 tire lathes. I have 2 Unimat SLs. A bit of a lathe
That's amusing. Messy workbench. Yeah, right.
That's pretty clean. That's a clean workbench.
Yeah. Hang on a sec. So that's me. After about 2 or 3 months in slotting, I also discovered OzSlot Forum, which some of you know, Greg's over there. And the first thing I got into a huge argument with one of the friends of the owners, a bloke called Rick Field. And never heard of him, of course.
Oh, yeah. I think I've been in an argument with him too.
Relationship ever since.
Come to think of it, I think I blocked Rick Field.
Forum since 2008, and I do most of the moderating there. So we got a pretty good community down there in Australasia. And one of the guys that turned up at my house when we started the club was a guy called John Warren. So if any of you build any resin cars, he's Munter on the forums. So he's in my club too. So in fact, half the guys in our club have been there right since the start. We've lost a couple that have gone overseas, but most guys are still there. Along the way, I had the Ninco distributorship, couldn't get any shops to carry it. Basically, the Skeletric distributor said, if you stock that Ninco stuff, you'll never get Skeletric again. I was locked out. So in 2008, I started a little web shop. And a well-known guy called Alan Tadd from UK, if any of you know of Alan. He's BJ7 or BJ on forums. He was touring New Zealand and came over home to see me building my first 3-lane wood track. And he said, have you thought about any of the other brands? And I said, well, I have. I wrote to NSR, they wouldn't talk to me. And he said, well, what about Slotted? They won't want to talk to me, I'm too small. Oh, Mauricio's a nice guy. I should send him an email. So I did, and I heard nothing for a week. After a week, I thought, I'll use my old business attitude. I'm just going to ring up and say, hey, what's the guts? Long story short, we've been doing Slotted ever since then. There's no contract. We're friends. I like the way Mauricio's wife cooks pasta. But along the way, in 2016, I shut the shop. We decided to take our big OE, and we packed up our lives in New Zealand, shut the shop down, sold our cars, half our furniture, our house, and moved to Spain. And so we lived in Spain just over a year near Alicante. So my home club there, the few times I raced, was the Elche Club, which is Diego Maradona, that owns Catrix and Mitos, whichever way to say it. But at the end of 2017, we moved back to New Zealand, and so when I asked some people about perhaps restarting the shop, everybody just basically says, off you go. So I restarted the slot race shop, and I'm going again. I get to a few events. I met some guys over at the Disca in the UK, which was great when we were there. And that's my story. We've got a great little club going down here. We're analog. We race all brands. We've got about 15 classes. There's a lot of laughing, and off at the end of a race, we don't even bother looking at the results.
Right. Those are the best clubs. Don't even care. You're just there for fun. That's how I like to be.
Look, all the sheep stations have already been won.
Right. And some of the guys just know. I mean, the guys I race with in the analog club, the whole time they know exactly where they are in the standings without looking at the board.
We have the same. We basically say A, B, and C drivers, and we run about 6 or 7 day events each year, or half day events. We have a 3 or 4 hour enduro, and we make teams up, and we sometimes draw the things out of a hat with a team captain who's an A driver. 4 teams on a 4-lane track. But very often we sit down and we just do an unofficial seating, and Mac, who's our club captain, will look at me and go, "What do you reckon? They look about even." Oh, Craig's pretty quick these days. Maybe we should flick him over there. And that's about even. You know, we'll run a race with 7-second laps for 3 hours and have less than 10 laps between a couple of teams often. So that doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Hey, Bob, did you want to give us a little story or anything?
Yeah, hey, let me unmute myself. Great stories. I'll make it quick because I was on last time and introduced myself last time. I'm Bob Lindbergh. I'm in Virginia, USA, race analog, and have a digital track on which I can run both digital and analog at my house. And recently, given the pandemic, I've been switching over to focusing on my collecting. And actually, our talk shut down when I was talking last time. I mentioned to Greg I had part of my collecting was looking to collect at least one car from every modern manufacturer since 2000. And I was up to 43, and he didn't realize that there could be 43 manufacturers. There was actually significantly more than that. So I've still got at least a dozen that I'm waiting for. So that I'm yet to collect. But I collect and I race 132nd exclusively.
Cool. Kenneth, would you like to give us a little introduction?
Sure. Hi, guys. I'm Bardo. I live in Chicago, Illinois, or south suburbs of Chicago. 40 years old, but probably a little bit more of a youngster.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but for some reason your microphone is very muted. We can hear you, but it's quiet.
Okay.
That's better. So maybe that helps.
May I need to move closer?
That could be.
Okay. Yeah, my name's Ken. In the Chicagoland area of Illinois. Started collecting probably 5 or so years ago, and started out with a garage sale find of about 3 sets of Harman used tracks, so analog tracks. Right now I have a 6x16 oval, just a 4-lane oval set up. Doesn't get used very much. I'm more into collecting and building cars right now. My dad was very much into HO slot cars, AFX, Aurora, when I was young.
I lost you. I don't know. It's weird. It's like there's some kind of electronic overload protection or something on your microphone. It's like making you quiet. Like when you start talking, we hear you for a second, then it's quieter and quieter.
Maybe I'll go get a headset with a microphone.
If you've got one to hook up, go ahead and hook it up. We'll come back around to you. Ed, would you like to go?
Sure. I'm Ed Magner from Kalamazoo, Michigan. I'm Ed Magner on the forums. It's pretty straightforward. I've been was in slots. This is where I started Auto World, early 70s, HO stuff mainly. I went to engineering school, automotive engineer, mechanical engineer on engines and things like that, and dropped the slots when I picked up 1-to-1 scale stuff, and spent about 35 years running, doing road racing stuff, 1-to-1 scale, IMSA, SCCA, Grand Am, Motorola Cup, a bunch of that stuff. And around 2013, I had to have a hip surgery, and basically over the winter, and ended up the pro side of running pro races was getting too expensive. And the weekend that I spent $268 a tire on each of 2 sets of Pirelli tires was kind of the last straw for running pro racing. And so decided to dig back into the slot car thing. And I had a friend at work that had gotten Carrera Digital, and I started doing a little bit more research, and kind of took that plunge, got a set, got another set, hung out with the guys on the SCI forum. Dave Kay helped a lot. So that's where he was working at that point. And Yeah, it's just kind of grown since then. Kalamazoo's pretty got a lot of slot car activity. There's the Gilmore Automotive Museum's not far from here, and John Lacko has they've got a really big club track there that has lots of events. So there's a lot of scaly analog stuff. I'm primarily Carrera Digital and do a lot with the Bruce Yingling's timing and scoring system, and a lot of tricks and things around that. So kind of focus there. I've got my track here is I've got a 120-foot track in my basement. It's around 3 sides of the basement and a big U. I still my day job is migrated back over to the east side of the state. I've got a condo over there, and I've kind of got another track there. It's like my non-mag D124s are in the condo on the east side of the state, and the 132nd mag track is over here. So it's kind of a nice split. Although I haven't seen my D124 cars in a while because we're I'm hibernating over here. So yeah, great great hobby. Great to be back in it. I tried to coax a few more folks to come in here tonight. I think it looks like we may have gotten a couple to do that. But great idea, Greg, and thanks for putting this together. And I guess that's it.
Hey, we're just having fun. Kenneth, you want to give that another try?
All right, I swiped my son's Xbox headset.
So much better.
All right. All right, we'll start over again. My name is Ken Barta. I go by Tameless Tiger, and I'm pretty much only on the home racing forum. Just really like that one, kind of stick to that one. My forte into slot car racing started when I was really young. My dad was a big HO guy, Aurora, AFX. We had a pretty big slot car track in our basement. Just spent countless hours down there, just running cars around the track. We also had a train set, a pretty big like train layout. Fanatic, I don't have one, but I'm like enamored with how they build these scale models and all the landscaping and the planning and stuff that goes into that. It's just so awesome. But I got back into slot cars probably about 5 or 6 years ago. I came across a garage sale find. It was basically 3 Arton analog sets together. The guy was selling it as a collection. And my son, he's like, well, how much are you asking for it? And the wife was there. I don't know if the husband was there or not, but we basically got it for $60. And it was just like, we had about 8 cars and a whole bunch of track. And then my dad, who still has a track and collects, he said, hey, there's a slot car swap meet in Northwest Indiana, which is only like, 90 minutes away. So we went and checked it out. And then my whole world was just like, oh my God, like there's all these different, types of cars. And, just for the last 3 or 4 years, I've just been collecting anything that was interesting. GT cars. I really have a intrigue right now for like 60s racing, Porsches, Ferraris, obviously like Ford versus GT just came out. So that's really what I do. I don't do a whole lot of racing right now. Like I said, I'm kind of into like buying old Stormbreakers or, interesting bodies that I like and trying to make chassis for them, and just I just got a paint airbrush set up. So I'm learning how to airbrush and just trying to absorb everything that I can. So.
Hey, Ken, quick question. You said there was a slot car swap meet out there in the Midwest. Did 132nd dominate? All the swap meets here on the East Coast are all HO.
I've been going to that for about 3 or 4 years now, and it varies. It's usually 132nd dominant. The last couple of years, though, there's been quite a bit of HO coming back in, and it all depends on who wants to sign up and sell. But there's been a wide variety.
I would take a road trip just to get to a swap meet that had a decent selection of 132nd, because I can't find it around here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Did you have anything else, Ken?
No, thanks for putting this together. It's interesting to see everybody else's story.
Yeah, it's fun. Now, I'm sure most of us know Dave Kennedy by name and have probably interacted with him, but Dave, you want to give us just a quick little who I am?
Yeah, sure. So can you guys see me and hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So I got into slot cars when I was a kid. My uncle, Rob Livingston, got me into them, and we would race pretty much all the time when I was little. I really didn't have a dad, so he was the one that I played with a lot. And we raced on his Revell track, and he had all the scratch-built cars, some of which I've kind of redone some of the liveries on, and especially like with Carrera. So I raced with him when I was little in Connecticut, and then we moved away to Pennsylvania, and my mom and I did with my stepdad, and there wasn't really much slot cars happening here in Central PA. So they got me a little Tyco slotless set, and I raced that pretty much until it broke. I got out of the hobby until probably about about 2000, I guess. And my wife and I were at Sears Point Raceway getting her mom a NASCAR present for her birthday. And I said, well, I don't want to look at the t-shirts or whatever, so I'll go over here. And I saw a bunch of cars on the wall, and I said, I'll go look at these die casts. And it was a whole wall full of slot cars. It was mostly fly cars, GB Track, Submenco, I guess, at the time. And I remembered basically that that I could do slot cars as a hobby kind of at that point. My wife was kind of, pushing me to do something besides photography for a hobby. I was a photojournalist at the time in San Francisco at the Examiner. And basically got back into slot cars then. I think I found Home Racing World first and asked Harry a bunch of questions because I had no idea kind of what what modern slot cars looked like. I knew what my uncle and I had raced, but the cars I had seen were really, they were real different, of course. Just kind of got back into it from there. I was still a photographer. We moved back to New York City, and I was still shooting for a newspaper. So I wanted to do something, I thought, with slot cars. So I was taking pictures in the studio at the newspaper of the cars, and I would take pictures of them at home just kind of for fun. I was a moderator on Slot Car Illustrated at that point, and I was the Ninco reviewer, quote unquote. I had a falling out with Alan and decided that day to start this thing called a blog. And I started Slot Car News then, which was the blog that got me going in the industry. The idea when I started Slot Car News was that it not necessarily be reviews, but that it would be news, product photos, that sort of thing that I could basically get for free and publish just information, because I was kind of used to publishing information because of working at newspapers. That was my career at that point. So it felt natural that I do that, and it felt like I could get the content essentially for free, and I could get something I knew people wanted to see. So that's kind of how I started. I would do posts on Slot Car News. I still have the blog. I still own it, but I don't do anything on it now. McBrown does. I don't really feel like putting my time into Slot Car News. I was getting news from all the companies. So I had contacts at all the companies, And I got contacted by Chuck Arid, who at that point was the business development director, whatever you want to call him, for SCX. And he offered me a position consulting. Actually, technically offered me a full-time position. And I said no because it wasn't a real offer. It was a bad offer. It wasn't enough money to live on. At that time, I was living near New York City. So I turned the job down because I thought I would be a photojournalist for the rest of my life, frankly, because I was working in New York City at that point, shooting mostly, I would shoot in the evenings, mostly pro sports in New York City. So all the pro sports in the city was what I shot for the paper. Knicks, Nets, Jets, Giants, Knicks, Rangers, Yankees, Mets, Islanders, Devils, Golden Gloves, pro golf. Anyway, so that's what I was shooting. That's what I was doing full time. And they came back. When I turned down the job, they said, well, how about you consult for us? And I said, okay, sure, I can do that. So what I was doing was I was working 2 to 10 or 3 to 11 shift shooting in New York City. And then I would come home at night. And then from about midnight until maybe 3, 4 in the morning, I would do posts on Slot Car News, trying to publish it pretty much every day. My wife and I had our son previous to that, so it was kind of was pretty stressful having a little kid and having a toddler at that point, and working full time in the city and shooting. And I did that for about 6 months, and SCX offered me a real job at that point. That was 2007, 2008. I guess that's what my resume says. I can't remember. And then I took the job, and I quit my job at the newspaper, and I worked at SCX for, I guess it was 3 years, and I worked at Carrera for 8 years, and then Scalextric for 2 months, 2 years, 2 months.
And going.
So anyway, that's the shortest version I can give of it.
That's pretty much the whole Dave Kennedy story, as far as I can tell.
Yeah,
So
pretty much.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Tamar, you've been here for a while. Do you want to give us a quick rundown of Tamar? Oh, you're still muted.
One moment. I was just not going for some sleep. Was working a little bit on the sideways BMW M6. Still struggling to write that review. Interesting. Nice to meet you all, guys. See some faces with the names that you see dropping by on the forum. Some of you may know I'm on the other side of the world, the European continent, so it's a bit late here. But I usually do my stuff at night, especially slot stuff when I'm working on cars or writing stuff on forum. Much quieter, and especially now when we have the Corona situation here, so things quiet down. What do you guys want to know? How I started in slot racing?
Yeah.
Some 25 years ago, there were 5 friends in a bar having a few drinks and saying like, what's the thing you always wanted to get from Santa Claus but never got? And behold, 4 out of the 5 guys said a racebaan, which is Dutch for a slot racetrack. And guess who the idiot was that finally ended up buying one for his friends? So that's basically how it started out. It started out in my living room, expanded to the hall, to my bedroom. And at a certain moment, I thought like, wow, if I want to get my house back, I need to start a club. So one thing led to the other, and 25 years later, I'm still doing it. That's about the story. But on the other hand, I always say I'm not that much a slot racer. I'm I'm a sports car racer, only my car's a little bit smaller.
Yeah, when you said you were working on that car, I'm like, I was gonna jokingly say, box stock.
Well, box stock has its things. It's just not my thing.
Your thing.
Because box stock racing is good if you only race one car, because then you don't have anything to compete against it. I don't know. It's one of the usual discussions. You know, box stock versus modified, or Magna racing versus no magnets. For me, you know, as long as it looks like a real sports car and it's, you know, gives you, the racing gives you that feel, it's all good.
Yeah, and as I said on previous videos, that's one of the things I love about slot cars, is that there's so much variety. You know, people like to mark and get into the tuning and scratch building, and then people can do, you know, scenery, or like model railroading, and people can do, you know, fancy car paint jobs, and people like me can just take the car out of the box, take the magnet out, and stick it on the track and drive around.
Yeah,
We're
and
all together.
please hurry up and get that thing finished and the review up on the assembly, because I'm trying to avoid making my usual 50 mistakes on putting the kit set together by following your guide.
Why do you think it's been taking me so long? Because there are probably 50 things you can do wrong, even with a simple white kit as the sideways BMW M6. It's a little bit confusing, because one way it was a car that I was hoping for a very long time, and, you know, had great expectations of, given the reputation of sideways. And then you finally see the first pictures and you get the car in your hands, and it's kind of, I don't know whether I should be very happy with the kit, because, you know, one way they did very nice stuff with it, and the other way, when you start assembling it, you find so many little things that have gone wrong that you think, like, why didn't they focus a little bit more on, you know, build quality, even on the white kit, than on, you know, trying to make it lighter or lower or whatever. But I'm working on it, so I hope you'll be a little bit more patient. And yeah, since they are now arriving at most of the slot races at home, you know, yeah, I'm working. That's why I'm working on it now, because I thought, like, okay, I promised this, I need to finish this, so that the guys can start building without having to make all these little mistakes.
Yeah, and Chris doesn't give out a lot of information. He's not great at communicating.
Yeah, well, they're French. What can I say? You know, they're great communicators in French. I don't know. It's also probably, you know, it takes a lot of time. And, you know, for instance, with the Hurricane, they did a very great manual, you know, a big instruction leaflet with all the stuff. But okay, that was really like a model kit with so many parts. BMW is much simpler. But then again, if you want to build it nicely, there are so many little details, you know, to look for to make it fit really as they, you know, as it was intended. The main thing that I noticed is that with all these modern slot cars being fabricated actually digitally, and so they do everything in 3D on the computer, and on 3D and on the computer everything fits. But most of the manufacturers don't seem to have the time, or don't seem to have the patience to, you know, like, yeah, make a test print and then take into account tolerances that you will get when you do an injection mold, when there is flash, when there are parts warping due to heat. It's all actually too much into too tight tolerances. And that actually takes a lot of time to find that out, to fix it. Because, yeah, if you want to build a white kit, it's like blueprinting a car. You know, you want to make it as it was intended, so that everything sticks without having tension in the body, or you know, needing to open up holes a little bit more. It's a lot of work, but okay. In a couple of days, it will be finished with lots of pictures, and that takes a lot of time as well. You know, to photograph something in a way that it makes sense to somebody. Yeah, that's about it.
Awesome, and we're all looking forward to that. I know. I've been following along as much as I can, given everything else that I'm also trying to follow along everywhere else. Eric, did you want to give us a little about myself? Oh, you're muted. There you go. Oh, he muted himself. All right, unmute your microphone. There we go.
Bam.
There we go. All right, go for it.
It's harder than I said, Ed. You know, I said, what, technology challenged? Anyway, I'm Eric. I just go as Eric P on the forums. Used to be Buspoor63 due to my fanaticism for Volkswagen vans and Porsche 911s. Recently, one 911 that I used to own, I just got a message from a guy in Germany who owns it now. So it's in 40, 50 years, it's traveled full circle. Anyway, I like slot cars, you know, like all 10-year-olds. We got our AFX track and had a lot of fun. We raced our brothers, we raced our friends. And then, like everyone has said, well, then came high school, then came this activity, that activity. For me, it was racing power boats. I raced around the United States, went to Europe a bunch of times, came back, kind of got that past me. Mainly, it gets expensive, you know, when you're footing your own bill. So then slot cars came up again. My brother and I, we dug out our HO stuff, and that was kind of fun. And then he made the mistake of buying one or two 132 cars. And it's like, wow, that's pretty nice. You can hold them in your hand. You can see them. They're not all the same. So he bought a Carrera Pro X set. It's like, digital's pretty cool. We can race 4 cars at a time. And we outgrew that real quick. The plastic track was nice. It was coming along great. Then we got into D132 and started buying cars, started chipping cars. Then I had to have a wood track because plastic track's fun. So I built a little 4-foot, 12-foot roval. You could either run it as an oval or a road course. It was a 3-lane, was analog, but it was good. But I always wanted that digital wood track. So I always referred to it as my dream track. So it became a 2-lane wood track that's like 7 feet by 14 feet. I don't know. You can see it kind of leaned up against the wall in the background. It folds up against the wall. It runs Carrera software and hardware. I guess I control it with Bruce Yingling software. I got Ed's big red button for track calls, and just kept buying cars, sold a few cars. I think I've regretted about 95% of every car I ever sold. So anybody, don't sell your cars, you know, just keep them. They're only $40, but when you want them to buy them back, they're $60. So that's about it. I've been working on my garage. I built a 20-foot, I don't know, it could be considered a bar. It's about the right height. It's finished like a very nice bar. I've got some nice cases here to put my cars in. I don't know. I hope you can see those. Austin Healey Grill down there. Momo box fan. Dirty workshop. But that's kind of how I get by. And that brings me up to date. I know, Greg, you, I think, are still a member of my Slot Car Facebook page. I believe Dave is, and I know Ed is. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for participating in this experiment.
Thanks, Eric. And I've raced at Eric's track. I've been down there. It's a really nice nice setup that he's got. It's really cool how he's cut the lane changers out of the tracks and made them work on the wood track. So pretty nice setup that he's got there.
I definitely
that. I was just going to add, never be afraid to void a warranty. you know.
Absolutely. Did any of the people not with camera want to introduce themselves? Lance, Chris, MX5, JK, Daryl, Portals?
I wouldn't mind. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Chris.
I wouldn't mind saying hi to Mark. Mark, looks like you're losing some leaves behind you there, buddy.
Oh, you're muted, Mark.
Mark's gone?
No, he's muted.
Oh, is he?
Let me,
Okay.
I can.
Yeah, really quickly, again, I was on last time, so most of you know, I started in 1961. My dad brought a VIP set back from the London Toy Fair, and I think I was, how old was I? 5 years old, 6 years old?
Okay.
Got my first slot car job with Aurora in 1972. And I was 14 or 13, and it was the world's greatest job. I used to demonstrate Toyota HO sets at Toyland at one of the big department stores. They had a big Christmas Toyland thing every year, so I did that. I worked part-time all through school, all through high school, and now that I've been retired a few years, so I've worked at quite a few commercial tracks, raced all over the world, and my big passions are building scratch-built chassis and building a lot of vintage cars. Yes, those leaves are, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
there you go.
It's autumn here, Chris.
Well, that's why I sort of wondered why the leaves were falling. No nose. Anyway, that's it. That's it for me.
Okay. Well, unless anybody else wants to do an introduction. Daryl, did you want to do anything? I don't see anybody else here. So the next thing I was going to do, like I wrote in my invitation, does anybody have any news type tidbits or projects that you're working on, or anything that you just kind of want to share?
Could be a new commercial track opening in Toronto in the fall, and that will be owned by one of the current slot car manufacturers, who happens to be a Canadian manufacturer. So
Ernie
still-
Mazzetti. Ernie Mazzetti.
Yeah, well, everybody knows that.
It's kind of a short list.
It is.
So what? So I'm not familiar with Ernie quite off the top of my head. What manufacturer does he represent?
He doesn't represent. He owns Mazzetti Racing Slot Car, MR Slot Car.
Oh, okay, Mr. Slot Car. Yep.
Yeah, and his forte is really not the 32nd scale plastic stuff. It's all commercial type chassis, Euro Sport chassis, and stuff like that.
Anybody else have anything they want to talk about?
So I had a project that I have about 6 projects half started, but you know, as I discover all these 1/32 model kits that you can build into slot cars, I picked up this GTO, and I kind of want to do a pro stock, almost like if you guys have ever seen the drag racing shows, just something kind of subtle, but to learn to start working with styrene and how to add it to a model and kind of do some body modifications. So I'm just kind of playing around with the super glue and learning how to work with that material. So
are those models?
Kenneth,
made out of styrene? I would expected those kits to be injection molded ABS or something like that. The styrene and those kits tend to work together.
If you get yourself some Plastistruct weld,
okay,
that works a lot better. The problem with CA is it has no shear strength. So it's not, I mean, you get a little crack, a little crash or something like that, and all your bits and pieces are going to fall off.
Yeah. Kenneth, if you were to jump on the Oz Slot forum, you don't even have to join it. You'll see there's some real clever stuff being done by some guys there doing builds up like turning things into Group 5, building up with some plastic and Tamiya putty and things, building some cars. And also, if you're at the Facebook page for JS Chassis Design, the guys there are doing some nice stuff and building things up so they can then cast off them or scan and 3D print them. So that's just a couple of sources of ideas for you to see how guys are doing some of that stuff.
I appreciate it.
Very cool. So when you start, where do you post it? Kenneth, you said you're primarily on Home Racing World?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Ken, tell us about the cabinets in the background.
So I just built that this past winter. Most of my cars were just all on our track, and some of my nicer cars, we didn't want them getting dusty, or my kids are young, so they're always shooting Nerf arrows around and stuff. I wanted to put them somewhere nicer. So I built. It's basically a wooden case, and it's got glass doors, sliding glass doors, and I used acrylic for the shelving. And so then I put a LED light all the way around the frame, so it kind of lights them up a little bit. I found an old whiteboard at work, and I cut that down to size. That's the background. So I've already filled that one up, so I'm gonna have to make another one soon.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Are you working on that Cox Lotus 40?
I thought this was a Strombecker.
No, it's a Strombecker. It's on the shelf behind you, sitting on the track.
Yeah. So, I picked a couple of these, probably 3 or 4 of these bodies up for a couple bucks each.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was a Cox. It's a Strombecker. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just tried to make a modified chassis to fit it. Just playing around with it, trying to get it running, get it painted.
I've done a lot of Strombeckers. I'm on HRWs. I'm on most of the forums as well. My handle is Chris Guy W.
Okay.
I've done a lot of the Strombeckers. They can look gorgeous done up.
Yeah, I was amazed at how they were talking about everything is now design and CAD and injected molded. I was trying to figure out how would you make something like this back in the 50s and 60s. How would you create the master plug to do an injection mold like that?
Well,
they're just beautiful.
Yeah.
Some kind of lost clay casting, or no, that's die casting. I mean, injection molding has been around for quite a while, but
yeah,
I guess machining technology is pretty old school stuff. I'm sure an expert machinist can make an injection mold just with the right machinery and knowing what to do.
I think a lot of them were first wood carved, and then they took a first casting off that, and then the metal for the injection molding off of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a question for the group. I've been doing some researching on soaking tires, but I've got a different problem. I've got some cars that are really nice, but the original rubber tires have gone really hard, and I'm wondering whether I can restore the original tires. If it's going to be a runner, I'd go to Paul Gage up in Canada and get replacement tires for it. And I do that all the time. But if the car is otherwise all original, I kind of want to keep the original.
How old
tires
original
on.
are you talking? Oh, sorry. How old original?
Not current era, 21st century.
Okay.
So maybe 10, 15 years old, but they're starting to dry. They you can't get them around the track just by sanding them. And I'm wondering what would you suggest for soften them up a bit?
They're not going to soften up. They're not rubber. It's all synthetic these days. If it's the stuff that comes on fly cars and stuff, half of those turn to goo after a few years anyway. So
I've had that with my Carrera Can-Am cars.
Yeah,
the big fat tires turn to goo. But now I'm just trying to find a way to soften them up enough to appreciate them, run them around the track and appreciate them. not
You
racing.
can, you can, you know, I mean, you can try sanding them, you can try putting some stuff on them, maybe some oil or something, but once the modern synthetic rubber tires go, there's plasticizer in them, and they're basically history.
Yeah, I would suggest the Paul Gage tires, like you mentioned. About that time that you mentioned, Carrera switched. I was working for them then. They switched to a mix, so it was technically a vinyl, as someone just mentioned. There was a bit of rubber, natural rubber mixed in them, but they would have poor mix, which caused exactly like you talked about. There was a few years there where a few years after a whole bunch of the cars that we had made, that the tires just, I mean, as everybody knows, the tires just kind of, you know, all the oils oozed out, and everything just basically just went to shit.
Yeah, well, the ones that get soft and ooze out, I'm just going to get rid of. But there are others that are just starting to get hard, and I was wondering whether soaking them is going to do any good.
I mean, it certainly might. It might work a little bit, but anytime you soak them in anything, it's going to pull the oil out of the tire, and then it's just going to make the tire hard. So in the end, just replace it, because you're going to get more life than going forward out of the tires that you do replace them with. I know it's, you know, people don't really like that because then they have to buy more tires, of course. That sucks. But
I have no objection to buying tires.
You know, just go to slotcarcorner.com and buy tires.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question that I had was, are these primarily shelf queens that you want to look nice with the original tires, like the original tires are thread thing, and maybe put them on the track every so often, or do you want to enjoy having them
among the 600 cars that I own, they're not among the 50 or 60 that I race. They're the other ones that I drive. So they're not, yeah, some people might call them shelf queens, but they all come out of the box and they all get on the track.
So it's mainly the look you want to keep, not necessarily their drivability.
Yeah, exactly. Mark?
I was just going to say that maybe just something that's not too aggressive, like the NSR tire oil. It's not actually a solvent, so it's not going to be so active, and that stripping out that Dave's talking about, it might be just worth trying it on a set of each type of tire and see if it just helps not even so much softening them, but just giving a smooth surface that will have some grip on your track.
Well, I can always turn them to get a smooth.
Yeah.
What
plus the oil.
What type of track are you racing on? Are you driving on? Whatever.
Skeletric.
Oh yeah, so you're going to definitely need, you know, with the essentially the lack of surface, Skeletric track is pretty smooth, so you're definitely going to want more grip. If you were on Ninco, it wouldn't matter quite as much, obviously. You know that. So,
I think one of the Carrera cars that I bought early on was probably of that era, and I noticed that the tires were losing grip, and I had read, you know, people, you know, using oil on tires, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll just, you know, soak them in oil, just like, you know, you use the word soak. That's what I was thinking. I dropped them in some oil. I took them off the rims, I dropped them in some oil. That was my mistake, because essentially the tires went in like this and came out like that.
Oh yeah, they'll expand.
So now anytime I use oil, it's always on the outside only. You know, I never put oil anywhere else other than the outside, the contact patch, basically. And like Mark was saying, I'll use NSR tire oil, or, you know, just some other really light oil. You know, 3-in-1 makes a lot of good varieties to play with. But that was a funny mistake, and the funniest part was that I could actually drive the car, because it would just kind of the wheels would stay on the bottom of the tires, and the tires would just kind of roll along with the wheel rolling along. So I could drive it. It had good grip, but I couldn't go really fast or corner hard, because then the tires would just come off. And of course, I've since replaced those with Paul Gage urethane. Speaking of sport track, my personal preference, if you like a little bit of slip but a little bit of grip, I love urethane tires pretty much any urethane.
Oh yeah,
down.
yeah. For,
Yellow
for
Dog,
racing,
all good.
for racing, it's switched to urethane tires.
Yeah.
Glue and true them, and that's that works just fine.
Yeah.
I'm
If you want,
talking about the other cars. Things
and
that
that's one of the things I like about
oddball.
urethane is that it's not too grippy. If you want grip, then you slap a pair of NSRs or some slotted N18s or N22s on there. Give them the old NSR tire treatment, and those just don't let go. You just until the car comes off, they're just stuck. It's amazing. When my first experience with NSR tires was like, how is this real? How does this work?
Defying centrifugal force.
Right. Does anybody else have any questions they want to ask the group? Are you leaving, Mark?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Great to meet you. Tamar, some interesting discussions ahead with Geo.
Okay.
So,
What was
sounds
that
like a
about?
really great idea.
Which was?
The logo you've just done.
Oh yeah, Gio, we have a Zoom chat planned for later today on Friday evening, actually Saturday morning for him then. Yeah, let's see how that works and how you can get my guys can make that work for your local community.
Yeah, hey, I'm very keen. I've emailed Mauricio. I haven't heard back yet, but let's see if we can get it to happen.
Yeah, sure. Interesting.
Okay, bye. Bye all.
Coming, Mark.
See you later.
Actually, one of the things that I did notice, because I read, or read on a lot of the forums that you guys go pretty much for urethane tires. I never had Paul Gage tires, but did have some experience with urethane tires in 124. Because in Germany there was a long period where these, they wanted to have clean tracks, and urethane tires lasted longer and didn't put down a deposit. But the only thing that happened there is that actually they managed to get almost the same grip from urethane tires as you would, what you guys would describe as awesome grip from NSR kind of tires. And the only way to do that is to polish them till they have a mirror-like sheen. Do you guys ever do that?
I do not spend that much time doing it. I have seen people go to that much trouble, but I don't. Yeah, I used to spend more time kind of tuning and tweaking than I do these days, but I've kind of grown out of the need to feel like my car is the best car, because I came to the conclusion that no matter how good my car is, it's still my trigger finger that wins or loses the race. So urethane tires, like if I had gone through all the trouble to polish it, I would have to keep doing that, before every race to make sure that I had the best possible grip before that race. And with the analog club that I race with, you can't do anything to your tires once the racing has started for the evening. It's in parc ferme. You're not doing anything to the car unless there's damage that needs to be repaired. So we make sure our tires are prepared in whatever way is allowed. And so with NSRs and N18s and stuff like that, we've done the oil the night before, and then we'll do lighter fuel or Scale Auto tire cleaner, dauber right before the race and stuff. But then throughout the race, your grip just kind of slowly drops off.
As it should.
And then the guys who have the grip last the longest are the guys who spend that much more time polishing. They're proud of the work that they do, so they'll show, hey, look at these tires, and you're like, I can literally comb my hair in these tires because they're so shiny. But their grip only lasts maybe a heat longer than the guys who just do a quick buzz, with the tire cleaner. So I'm not going to spend that much time.
The experience that I had with tires, they were German tires, Michael Ortmann tires.
Ortmann, yeah.
They were the original mix of Ortmann tires, and I still have some of the original mix tires on the Porsche 959 that I won the one of the Race Across Americas. I still have that car set up, and it's still got the Ortman tires on it. And Ortman are the only types of urethane tires that I've found that stick no matter what. The original mix, not the new mix.
Did you ever get, because Ortman tires were already copies from the guy that created the formula, Stefan Wiesel. Did you ever get some Wiesel tires?
No, I didn't. I never did. I did get some newer Ortman tires, of course, and they weren't any good at all, unfortunately. And I've tried Gage tires, and they're okay, but my club mainly races silicone tires, and then we will race some rubber tires, and usually it's Nenko, like actually I have it here, the Mustang, and it's Nenko. I think these are 20x7s on this in a GT class, kind of a classic GT. This is actually my friend Sammy's. It's not mine. I have to give it back to him at some point. I don't know when yet, but I will. But yeah, so we either race rubber or we'll race the silicone tires. And when we do 24th, 25th scale stuff with H&R chassis, that's either the foam tires that have silicone on them or the rubber tires that the H&R comes with. So yeah, that's what we race. And we only race on wood. Both of the tracks that we race on, it's really one track, I guess you'd say. And it's a wood track. We only do wood track racing, so non-magnetic.
I think I had.
Hey, Dave, I sold a monogram Mark Donahue Mustang just like that a couple months ago. I'm wondering whether that's the same car.
I kind of don't think so. I think Sammy has had this one for a while.
Okay. I was going to go back and look and see who I sold it to.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe it was him. He has a lot of cars. He buys a lot of stuff. So yeah. I just recently bought 2 of the white kit bodies after I raced the one that Sammy let me borrow. And I bought a chassis for the white kit. It's here on my desk somewhere. And at some point I'll build it for the club if we ever get back to racing again. I assume we will at some point. So.
You guys were talking about Ortman tires. I think I had one pair of Ortman tires several years ago. I don't remember what car or series it was, but even from that one pair, I would have to agree that those were pretty good tires. I don't remember first early formula or later formula, but definitely better than Yellow Dogs and Paul Gage's. I think Tomorrow's made a good point. If you polish them up real good, you can get much better grip than I get. I just sand them true and race them like that.
Well, if you one of the issues with urethanes, unless you're running on a very, very, very smooth wood track, the urethane cuts so quickly that you can polish it to look like a piece of glass, and within 10 laps, all that shine has just disappeared off. Look underneath your wheel wells and you'll see all the dust from the tires in there. So at a couple of the commercial tracks, when we raced with the urethanes, we'd had polishing blocks and guys were polishing the tires between heats every 3 minutes.
Jeez.
Which absolutely, I agree. I mean, if you go to a lot of the world-class events around the world, you see some stuff that makes your head spin. But we just said, this is ridiculous. It's taking 5 minutes between heats, and nobody's doing everything. So we just said, forget all that stuff. So you can polish them all you want, but if you're running on a plastic track, especially within 10 laps, all your hard work and polishing is absolutely gone. And a word on the Ortmans, as Tamar said, Ortmans were basically 30-second scale copies of the guy who started the 24th scale thing, which was Stephen Wiesel. So same tires, different guy, different scale. The original ones, which are sort of commonly known as gray dust Ortmans, are as good as, if not better than anything on the market today. They're wonderful.
Yeah.
Second iteration was what they called blues. And when you put those in a tire grinder, you get all this blue dust coming off. They were basically, hideous would be a good word for those. They were just disgusting.
Yeah, I agree. They were not good.
No.
I had plenty of them, and they just got
and then
taken off.
The new ones, and there's a guy in England, RS Slot Racing, Colin Spark, who is sort of a big distributor of a lot of the third generation Ortmans. They are much better. They're basically back on a par with Yellow Dogs and Darts and Paul Gage and stuff like that tires now. So all around, if you want a no maintenance, no issue tire to work and go fine, urethanes are just great, just great.
My honestly, the best thing, my reason for love of urethanes is how easy they are to true.
Well, that's
stick them on and buzz them. You don't have to worry about speed or pressure or anything. Just crank that tire down and get them around.
I wouldn't agree with that.
That's what I like about them.
Well, and I think one of the nice things for club racing, we have, when we run classes here at one of our local clubs called Mini Grid, it's a commercial track. I set a lot of the classes and do a lot of the tech for the cars, and I get a lot of urethanes made with a colored dot through the face, the actual tread of the tire. So everybody's got to run exactly the same tires, which is, so that takes that out of the equation. The issue, you glue them on, you true them, you don't polish them between heats, and that takes a massive amount of work out of the equation. I'm in a couple of races, a couple of proxies right now with rubber tires. They're basically open proxies. You can basically do anything you want. And I tell you right now, the difference between the first car and the 10th car is not the motor, it's not the gears, it's not the chassis, it's the tires. You know, so you dick around with rubber tires, and everybody's got a secret sauce and a this, and I know the NSR guys they've got like tire bath oilers, and I know Geo and a few of the guys used to run their tires for hours and hours and hours in oil for sprint races. So that became you know, I'm willing to do the work, Greg's not willing to do the work kind of a scenario. So it's not good for the hobby. It pissed a lot of guys off and sent them out of the, you know, sent them away from the hobby. But just for you, Greg, the NSR tire, if you want to save a whole bunch of money and get exactly the same stuff, go get 3-in-1 oil.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it is. And probably one of the best things for rubber tire is Ronson lighter fluid. It's oil. It's oil based, and it soaks in quicker because it's thinner and a whole bunch of other good things. But you know, tires are. I've played too many tire games over the years with Tire Goop when I was running commercial pro wing car racing, and I really would like to, I think the best thing for the hobby is if we could sort of take tires out of the equation. And,
why don't you guys use more handout tires for your club racing?
well, everybody likes to true them. And I tell you, tomorrow, if I order, I'll order 100 pairs of tires with a colored dot on the tread of the tire. It goes right through the tire. So when I turn the car over and spin the rear wheels, I look for 2 colored dots, and you're good. You're legal.
Yeah,
So-
one of the other things that I kind of like about urethanes is, at least with my analog club and with my digital club as well, we usually just say, you know, for the spec, for the series we're running, which oftentimes is an out-of-the-box, you know, a Skeletric or Fly or something like that. So it's got plastic wheels that pretty much need to be trued in order for the car to run properly. We basically just say, okay, this is the brand of urethane tires we're using. There's nothing more that you can do to it other than gluing and truing it. polish it if you want to, but it's just going to wear off that polish. But you can't. I mean, I haven't found anything that you can do that influences the composition of the material itself, like rubbers and oils and things like that.
There's a very simple a product called nail polish remover, or slightly acetone. One, dash over the surface, and it sort of dissolves the how to call it, the surface structure, without polishing. The thing is, I like, I've done a lot of urethane racing, but mostly in 124, because people said that's a tire that you can't trick. It's harder to do, but of course you can trick. And also when you have, even without treatments of chemicals, everybody looks at the outside of the tire. But if you if you throw the inside of the tire, or give it a little bit more wiggle room over your plastic rim, so that it becomes more flexible, those are all kind of things that you can do to tires, and nobody will see it because, it's glued and trued. So you can't, during tech, pop it off the rim to see, like, did somebody just, shave off a couple of tenths of the plastic rim, so that you have a little bit more of an air gap. For the average club racer, it's a good tire. But if it really goes down to down to the wire competition, there's no difference between running any kind of tire. If you have guys wanting to put time in it and effort in it, they will always win. So the only answer for that is actually to use handout tires, whether it's a complete tire on a, like what we do in Disca, when we have the, you hand out the N22s or the F22s or the N18s, or whether you issue a complete tried and trued wheel, like the Scale Auto Sponge, the foam tires. And even NSR has, ready to run tires that are glued and trued, but you just give them out at tech. That's the wheel. Everybody knows what they need to use. And then that's the only way, you can assure that everybody runs on exactly the same tires, because everybody will have to start on what they're handed out.
Well, back to your point, Tamara, you have to hand out a tire and wheel assembly. Handout tires doesn't
only in the classes, or in if you have a set of rules where you are allowed to glue and true your wheel. If you want to take tires out of the equations, gluing and truing is a very big part of that.
Yep.
So there are plenty of tires out there, that are or glued and trued by the manufacturer, or they are so good that, or at least on average good enough that when you run them, when you mount them on the wheel, that's what you have to work with.
Yeah, a lot of the more recent series through my analog club have been using the Scale Auto foam rubber, wheel tire. And that's, for us, it's mainly because they offer phenomenal levels of grip and performance. And so we race on a variety of highly rubbered in wood tracks, like at Allen's place, or freshly painted wood tracks that are just being constructed, and electric sport tracks. And we race on a variety, and those foam rubber tires pretty much perform everywhere very, very well. And it's just a nice, quick dauber of the Scale Auto cleaner to get it nice and grippy, and then we're off to the races.
Yeah, well, the only thing you need to do is ban the Scale Auto cleaning product.
Yeah, because ice skating.
There is a little bit of news. Like you said, Scale Auto foam tires, they in certain areas and on certain classes, they offer actually a bit of too much grip.
Yep.
And there was one of the things also that we soon discovered, for the GT3 races that we organized, where we used those tires. And for a couple of years, I've been bugging Ivan Bassas from Scale Auto to also produce the Procom 4, the hardest tire a sponge tire in for 1/32, and that's about to happen this summer. Of course, again, COVID gave it a big hit, so it might be in the fall, but at least for 1/32, they will also start producing the Procom 4 tires. And I've also asked them to start producing donuts for the 1/32 wheels, because of course, one of the major objections of using scale out of foam wheels as handout wheels is that it's expensive, because you race them for one race, and then for the next big competition, you get new tires and new wheels. So at least when they start releasing donuts also for the 1/32 sizes, you will be able to resurface your old wheels with a new foam, for your own club competition or your home use.
Yeah, and I'm definitely familiar with people who are so into it. I'll say that they go through a lot of time and labor to make their cars perform as well as possible. And we had quite a rift in our club as a result of some of those people's endeavors to improve the performance of their car outside of the specification. But the thing that we found, whereas the half of the club that pretty much doesn't do those things, was that the irony, of course, is that among the club members, we're talking about a dozen guys maybe, the guys who go through all that trouble are still they're the top racers. We usually race a series where we race our own cars so we can prepare them ahead of time. But each race night we'll also race an IROC race. So it's house provided cars. So everybody races those same cars.
Mm-hmm.
These racers who tend to bend the rules as much as possible are good drivers. And so they don't need to bend those rules to be getting on the podium on a regular basis, but they do anyways. And it's like, well, if that's the kind of person you are, I guess that's how you enjoy the hobby. But you're knowingly racing against a bunch of guys who don't do those things, and it's like, does that make your win more special, that that you did these things than they didn't do them, or not? And to me, a race is more special. A race win is more special when I know that everybody else did the exact same things, and that's why most of the guys in my group, like for the urethane tires, we'll glue and true them. Anybody who's in the club who doesn't have a tire truer or knows how to do it, usually the new guys, will say, hey, I'll do your tires. Give me your car. I'll bring it back next week. You'll have glued and true tires exactly how I did them. We'll do multiple cars, not because we want to cherry pick, but because we want to have cars set up the same way we set them up for those new racers, or who a one-time racer, or somebody got a car or whatever. Because basically our motto is, it's more fun to lose by an inch than win by a mile. And that's basically how we all treat our races. But, there's always somebody who's going to try a little extra. But it all comes down to this.
Club.
That's racing. But the thing is, for those kind of guys, and I must admit, there was a time when I was one of those guys, because everybody that starts in the hobby, they want to find their limits and see how far they can go or how good they are. But in the end, if there's, if you take that to the limit, then nobody will want to race anymore, or you get a very, very select few people, who will race. So I usually, for solutions to sort that out, I look at solutions that have been applied in real racing. So for many times at the club, we had a rule, that was sort of taken out of the what was it? I believe one of the IMSA rule books, or the Trans Am rule books, where you could buy any part from a competitor, at a level price. It's like, this is what it's up. So if you spend 10 hours on your tires, very good. But if I want them, I can buy them from you for whatever price you set for the club. And that usually sort of took it down a little bit. But actually, that is, stuff like that. If when it's about bending the rules, that's the responsibility of the racer. If you want to do that, it's more, it's not, those guys are usually, it's not that they want to win by a mile, they don't want to lose by an inch.
Yeah.
They're afraid to lose by an inch, so they think, I'll just go the little bit extra mile. It's not about winning, because if you win, you think like, okay, I won by a mile, next time I don't have to do my tires because I'm winning by a mile. But if you lose by an inch, that's how usually they go for the, like, well, if I bend the rules by an inch, maybe that evens it out.
Yeah. That's a tough one. I mean, I've heard of, there's lots of names for it, forfeit, racing or whatever, but a rule that says that at the end, if somebody wants to buy your car, then.
One way, it's a bit, it's a bit two-faced because I think most of the slot racers, especially at least, the older slot racers, for them, it's a, there's a very big link to real racing. And if you look at, what are the most juicy stories in real racing, those were usually, the stories that come up, like how a certain race team or a race driver or a manufacturer managed to cleverly bend the rules. And then we go, like, oh, that was great, but that's the same kind of racing. So, it's a fine line. And
yeah, the old rule of that's on a lot of our spec sheets is if it doesn't specifically say you can do it, then you cannot do it.
In a way, but yeah, it's what we race it doesn't go to the level of real racing, no. But it's all about sportsmanship, and that's just like your own personal responsibility.
Well, how big are your clubs, guys? Your race group? I don't race in a group. How big are your clubs?
Well, we've got I'm in Toronto. In the Toronto area, we have, I would say, 8 or 9 tracks within a half an hour drive. They're all basement tracks, wow. All wood tracks. So within that, there's probably 35 or 40 guys in that group. And then,
wow.
Out of the mini grid's a funny place. It's most of the guys live close by, and they're down right now. They're not because of coronavirus. They just switched locations, so they're in the midst of doing a new track, yada yada. And when we're back up, we'll be racing every 2 weeks, and we normally get no fewer than 25 guys. And we've had 25 guys for every race for 5 years now. So.
Oh, wow. You guys are so lucky.
My club, on the other hand, is more like 6 to 10 on a regular basis, and sometimes
wow.
12. But that's how
6 to 10. That's still a lot of people.
I mean, we live in a major metropolitan area, so Seattle, Tacoma, which is pretty dense, and most of the guys live within 15, 20 minutes of everybody else's basement or attic track or whatever. I'm one of the first away at a half an hour outside of Tacoma, which is where most of the racers are down here.
Oh yeah, I've heard of Tacoma. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where Alan Smith's 132 slot car. .us.
Alan Smith, what is his business called?
Scale Racing, Slot Car Illustrated, 132 slotcar.us for his business website. He was instrumental in Scalextric in the United States several years ago.
Oh wow, he's got kind of a bad name.
Depending on who you talk to, yeah, everybody's a character to somebody. I know lots of stories, and I've seen both sides of lots of things. So, but yeah, I know that he's got a bad name with some people, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, I like that Electric Dreams.
Yeah, that's a good site. I used to buy from there. I mean, I still do if they got something I want. Daryl, did you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? We're just hearing from you.
I just racing in the garage down here in Broken Arrow. And get some guys from work once in a while, come over and run some cars. But we don't have anybody, nothing like you guys got.
It's got to start somewhere. Sounds like you're having as much fun as any of us are.
Oh, we try, but if you get 2 guys, 3 guys, maybe it's kind of fun.
Exactly. Yep.
We run mostly NASCAR and stuff, and it's fun to put magnets on them and just let them rip. Yeah, kind of fun.
Hey, Daryl, 3 guys
Yeah,
is
buddy.
2 beers. 3 guys is 2 beers apiece. Oh, I see it.
We don't buy her by the 6-pack there, friend. We go for the full cases.
I got you.
Yeah.
And with the
You wanted to hang
magnets, who
around a little
cares?
bit,
You're
you
not
got to
gonna
get
wreck.
some beer. Oh yeah, we wreck them. I'll tell you, we gas them up and let them rip.
Hey, this was a fascinating conversation, guys. I really enjoyed it. I gotta go. I gotta kids to bed and all that good happy stuff. But fantastic technical stuff. Really appreciated it.
Yeah.
Yep.
You guys-
Good talking to you, Jeff.
Yeah, you guys have a good evening. All right.
Good seeing you, Jeff.
All right. Take care.
I gotta run as well, guys. Been good. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Rolling out.
Yep.
Yeah, right
See you,
on.
Chris.
Budweiser times are calling.
Hey, I got a question for Dave.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
You've been around for a while. What's your ideal dream car to drive? Slot cars.
A slot car?
Yeah.
Well, I guess the best running car I have is probably the I'm not much of a driver, so is the SCX NASCAR that I built.
NASCAR, right on.
So this is the slot burger car that I designed for Harry a few years ago when I worked for SCX, and it was built to national rules at the time when I did the race with I guess it was Ricky down at Raceware in Maryland and suburban Baltimore. And I can win with this car, and I have a different body on it now the next time I race it at the club. I just won the last race we had racing our NASCAR class. I don't usually win. I'm usually middle of the pack at best. But this car has had thousands of laps on it, and it really rocks.
What kind is it, Dave?
It's an SCX.
Is it an SCX?
SCX.
Right.
It's an SCX. It's the aero body.
Sweet.
I don't have the chassis here. It's
Is it a pro style chassis or a regular?
No. It's just a regular. It's just a because we didn't make a pro NASCAR chassis when I worked for them. We just made the regular pod chassis, so the pod is glued in.
Is it a V? Is it the V1 version of the chassis or?
There was only one version of the aero body chassis.
Yeah.
There was 2 versions of the COT chassis, but the only difference between the version 1 and the version 2 of the SCX COT chassis was I took 2 screws out of the back of the body. There were 5 body screws,
right?
2 in the front, 2 in the middle, and 1 in the back in the first version of the COT body. And they told me that if I could figure out ways of saving the money at the time, they were really interested in that. And I said, well, guys, you could take these 2 screws out of the middle of the body of the SCX COT. And they said, oh, we can take those screws out. I said, yeah, those screws are completely pointless. You only need 3 screws in a body, really. And they said, oh, this is great because I saved them, I think, 1/10 of a penny per car.
Per car, yeah.
Which is quite a bit. I mean, when you're talking about, a few hundred cars, which I think we did, I think the minimum run on SCX cars at that time was 500 pieces, which is pretty low. So anyway, so that's the best running car that I have. I have mostly the cars that I can drive fast are slow cars. I don't really, I like slower motors. I don't really race a lot of, more than 20,000 RPM motor cars. We do a lot of 125th H&R chassis racing at my club. My club is mainly, I think, 12 guys. Sometimes as many as 16 guys come.
Wow.
And I
That's
drive.
great.
I drive the most to get there. I drive about an hour one way to get to the club. I live out in central Pennsylvania, and they live kind of in north central Pennsylvania. I guess that's not really doesn't really mean much to you guys, but it's an hour. It's a good drive. It's not right around the corner. So, and they all kind of live in that area. And we race Thursday nights. We race in Sammy's garage. So the SC or the Carrera 57 Chevy that I did a few years ago, that was the red and white one that said Sammy's Garage on it. That's where we race.
Oh, nice.
So that's like why the sponsor of the car was Sammy's Garage. That's where we race. So anyway.
Wow.
That's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, the digital club, like I was saying earlier, the analog club that I race with is primarily down in Tacoma, and we get anywhere from 6 to 10 guys. The digital club, we're much more spread out. I drive an hour one way to get to a couple of the guys in the digital club when we race at their tracks.
Wow,
and it's not
halfway
necessarily the
across the state.
distance, but it's like through the major metropolitan, it's through Bellevue, which is just as dense as Seattle traffic.
Yeah.
Oh man,
nightmare.
I don't know.
On the way home, usually when there's very little traffic, it's only 45 minutes instead of an hour. But yeah, I mean, at least it's within a drive that you can go up and enjoy yourself and then come back the same day. I've gone as far as Portland for Monty Sager's yearly endurance race. That's a 3-hour drive. But that's definitely worth it to go there and have a bunch of yummy barbecue and race spot cars for 4 hours endurance.
I don't know if you can see it, Dave, but this is my club car. It's the same aero body.
Yep.
And,
God, that's sweet.
And
That's sweet.
I custom painted and got the decals from Pado's place in Australia.
Yeah, cool.
And so that's kind of my thing. Like I was telling Greg the last time, I don't do all the tuning and tweaking and all that. I'm more of the graphics guy. I like to paint and put the details on the cars and stuff. And then of course race. And so like I said, at some point, hopefully I can get some type of club started here. Whatever track, it really doesn't matter. I'll make the conversion, at least a couple of cars to whatever, if we can get a club racing here in Nebraska. So.
Oh, Nebraska. I was going to ask where you're at. Okay, cool. Right on. Oh man, I'm so jealous you guys.
One of the things that I'm having fun doing lately is 3D printing is my current hobby, latest hobby. But I'm also getting into the CAD work of designing things. And one of the things that I did by request from one of the guys in my club was, I don't know if you recognize this guy. It's a Ninco.
Oh, cheers.
With all of its pieces removed, except for the front piece there. Because he had a, basically a duplicate, because he wanted to do a set of 4 for an IROC race, but he had a duplicate color, and he was wondering if I could print different color of the pieces that go on the chassis. And so I was able to CAD the side pods and the front pod and the number plate and everything, and printed a couple of colors for him. And I'm currently working on the supercart pieces, so I'm gonna CAD up the fin and the bigger pods and the bigger pieces, and be able to print those out. So if you have an Inco
little go-kart, huh?
Convert it into a super cart or a regular cart, whatever colors And when I'm done, I'm going to sell him this one, so he'll have a nice set of 4 and be able to convert them basically between standard cart and super cart. That's the goal, anyways.
Those little carts are kind of cool.
Yeah, 3D printing is great. It's probably the greatest hobby I've acquired so far because I can use it for all my other hobbies. You know, I can print slot car chassis and bodies and accessories, and I can, you know, I've got several other hobbies that I can accessorize or do things for using my 3D printer. It's a lot of fun.
Hey, Greg, we got about 10 minutes left, so.
Is it going to kick us off at 2 hours?
Not for sure if it is or not, but I
was
had it
thinking we
set.
should probably wind it down at 2 hours anyways.
Yeah, I had it set for 2 hours.
Would anybody else have anything they want to share? Any questions they want to ask?
How quiet do you guys get in your races? We do a lot of yelling and stuff, and blue flag, get out of my way and stuff. I mean, you guys do that, or
Oh, heck yeah.
we do.
Oh, yeah.
what's going on?
One of the most popular phrases in my club when somebody crashes is, "There's a turn there."
Mm-hmm.
Oh my
Yeah. Yeah,
we
we
like,
So, you know,
we get pretty rowdy at my club. We don't.
Yeah.
We're not real quiet. We're yelling all the time at each other and busting each other's balls, and I mean, we get crazy rowdy. So
right.
you know, we're out in a detached garage, so you know we don't have to worry about keeping it real quiet or anything like that. So it's a lot of fun.
Stuff, yeah. Right on.
I mean, that's
cool.
half the reason we do it, right? Is to get together with the guys,
Yeah.
drink and drive, shoot the shit. And
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wish I could do that now. I'm like the rest of us, we're all stuck at home, and it hasn't been a real good spring. So I really, really would love to race with the guys. So yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much why I said, hey, let's do this, because.
Yeah, I like the idea. We should definitely do it again.
So now, do you have a track set at home, Dave? Set up at home?
I have a wood track. I have a small 3-lane wood track, but it's kind of covered with stuff. I don't have a track up at the moment. The Carrera track that I had, I gave to my friend Clem Ojevich, and I have other track, but I don't have a plastic track up that can be raced on yet. No, probably. Well, no, I don't have a track up to race on that now.
And I don't know if this is enough time to go into it. Like I said, I'm a beginner, but what is the big difference between, it doesn't matter what plastic track, but a plastic track versus a wood track?
The joints.
Yeah, so I mean, wood track, you have to paint it. So wood track surfaces can vary. The grip on a wood track is usually a lot better than most plastic track. Most plastic track has a fairly smooth surface, unless you're talking about Ninco or Polycar. And Ninco and Polycar have an incredibly high grip surface, which is frankly what I would suggest for a lot of beginners, because the idea of changing everything on a standard car, as soon as you get the car, I find completely disgusting. And this is kind of it's a hard thing to work. I don't work in the hobby anymore, but when you work in the hobby and you're a hobbyist, is to kind of separate what you do as a hobby versus what you suggest to people. And I never suggest to people that immediately they buy a car and replace anything on the car. I think that's absolutely stupid, and it makes them think that the car they just bought is not useful. I'd rather that they get the use out of the car as they bought it, and there's always a way to tune a car to race as you bought it.
And stuff, right?
Exactly, of course.
Big magnets, yeah.
That's one of the things that I've always found that I think drives more people away, is the idea that hobbyists say, oh, well, you bought this car immediately, you got to replace the tires on it. Well, that's stupid. And then it makes the person who just got into the hobby think that something they bought isn't good enough to play with. And these are toys. I mean, Maurizio especially talks about that. is how these are toys. We might think of them as more than that, but they are not more than that. They are toys. So, you know, you need to play with the stuff, and especially a beginner. Any car basically can be played with out of the box. Pretty much any car can. And that's how I suggest people, when I was doing it, would, you know, talk to people about tuning tips, cleaning the track, cleaning the tires, setting the braids. Those are the most important things you can do on a car. So that's, I mean, the differences between different types of track are width and track surface. That's really the only, and lane spacing, but that goes along with width. Scalextric is the narrowest. It has the smoothest surface. Nenko is kind of in the middle as far as width and has the highest grip surface. Carrera is the widest and has kind of a low to medium grip surface, I guess a medium grip surface. Polycar is almost identical to Nenko in as far as width, and it's maybe the same amount of grip. What else is there? Not really much.
Not that's currently available, really. No.
Yeah. And then wood tracks, the grip can vary wildly on wood tracks, especially if it's been painted with a flat latex or with a chalkboard paint or with a satin finish. It also depends on the time of year. Winter grip and summer grip are different, especially in the Northeast here. So, you know, if it's a low humidity time of year or a high humidity time of year, the grip will be different. So, you know, wood tracks can vary the most, I would say. I personally like wood the best, but then the second to that would probably be Polycar, frankly. It's fairly new, but I like high grip surface, and especially if you can race essentially any car on the track as it is, and you can, I think, with Polycar, and that's what I like about it, is because of the grip surface on it. I think that's the best, and it's hard plastic. And hard plastic, if you gotta have plastic, that's the best. So,
I was gonna say the people usually compare Carrera track to being the closest to a wood track, and I think that's mainly because of the rigidity of the track. Is Scalextric Sport, Scalextric Classic, Nenko, SCX, they're all kind of that very soft plastic, and so you can get the kind of slight bumpiness, or if it's really old, really bad bumpiness. Just on the track surface, not even at the joints. But then not having the joints is a wonderful thing in a wood track, even if it's, whether it's copper tape or braid or Magna braid or whatever, just having fewer joints. And when there are the joints, they're usually just you know, smoothed over really nice so that your car doesn't even notice them. So, I mean, that's the biggest appeal to me with a routed track, is that it's a very smooth surface. You know, even painted with a brush or a roller, it's, you know, it's still relatively continuous. You know, not necessarily smooth texture-wise, but smooth as far as continuity of surface. You know, and then you can, of course, you know, the slots can be, you know, more fluid, I guess, rather than, you know, even when you use plastic track to do like an R4-3-2-1 nice kind of tightening curve or an opening curve or whatever, that's really nice when you can do that, but you still don't have the flexibility of a wood track where it's just, you know, up to your imagination, really. So there's some pretty spectacular wood tracks out there, and you know, I still need to make a big wood track. I've got the little super little open proxy track is still there, but I very rarely use that. But I race on so many other tracks that I don't feel a strong need to change my track, because, you know, every Monday night when we're racing is basically a different track for 2 months solid, is a different track every Monday night. So I race on enough different tracks, wood, plastic, and whatnot, that I don't feel the need to change my track very much, which is kind of nice. I'm spoiled that way. But someday maybe I'll make a wood track.
All right, we got like a minute left.
Yep. Anybody, any last final words?
When's the next Zoom?
When's the next Zoom? We'll try again next Wednesday. We had a pretty good turnout. Lots of people from down under, which was nice.
Is Home Racing World going to be your main advertising location? I mean, your sort of home base?
I'm advertising everywhere. So multiple Facebook groups, multiple forums. If there's a forum that I missed that you think somebody could have come if they had known about it, let me know, and I'll create an account if I have to. But I try to post as many places as possible so that as many people know as possible.
Yeah, I'll post. I'll when you post again about it on HRW this coming week, I'll reply to it a couple times. Try to get more people. I'm a moderator there. Harry made me a moderator on the Facebook page, so I'll try to get some people's attention there too.
And this went really well. The main reason for this time slot was to try to get some people from down under to be able to come, because it's basically morning for them. But this is a little bit late in Eastern or Western Europe and in the UK area. Tomorrow's, what time is it there, Tamar? 2 in the morning?
3 o'clock in the morning.
3 o'clock.
Hey, all right.
So probably
when this finishes, I'll be finished as well.
I mean, Tamar's a night owl, but not everybody is. So next week we'll probably do earlier in the day so that the UK people can come, and maybe alternate between earlier in the day and later in the day so we can let as many people come as possible. When we did it in the morning, it was pretty low turnout. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't what I hoped for. So I think midday and later in the day would get the most participation. So we'll probably just alternate. So next week we'll probably do it earlier.
Yeah,
Okay,
sounds
guys,
good.
Have a good day, good night, whatever.
All right.
See y'all.
Thanks for coming.
Now we got to talk, right?
Yes, we do, Phil. We have to talk.
All right. We'll hook up.
All right. I'm going to stop
Thanks for
recording
setting
now.
this up, Greg.
Thanks for coming. See you next time.